But Sanders wasn't just watching, he was taking notes. And what he saw lit a fire that would turn this story into something much bigger than football. While Arch Manning's struggles were being polished into progress, another quarterback was grinding in an entirely different reality. Shedeur Sanders, son of Deion coach Prime Sanders, now rookie sensation with the Cleveland Browns, was putting up numbers that would make most prospects untouchable. Multi-year starter, consecutive impact, null-yard seasons, clean mechanics, sharp decision-making. The kind of resume that should silence doubters. But instead of praise, Sanders found himself on the opposite end of the narrative spectrum. Every throw he made was picked apart, every stat questioned. If Manning completed a basic slant, it was celebrated as a glimpse of greatness. If Sanders missed a read under pressure, it became a headline about his limitations. Where Manning was sheltered by excuses, Sanders was exposed to relentless skepticism. For him, the standard wasn't growth or patience, the standard was perfection. And that's when the phrase was born. After watching Manning's primetime collapse get spun into positivity, Sanders reportedly vented to teammates in private. That's Manning privilege. 2 words, sharp as a blade, slicing straight into the heart of the problem. Those words spread fast, whispered in locker rooms, repeated by scouts, even circulating quietly among league veterans who recognized the truth but couldn't say it publicly. The contrast was impossible to ignore. Sanders had built his career the hard way, earning every snap, fighting for respect against defenses stacked with talent. He'd faced pressure, blitzes, hostile crowds, and still delivered. His film showed a quarterback with refined footwork, polished mechanics, and the kind of football IQ that let him diagnose coverages before the snap. He wasn't just playing the game, he was mastering it. Meanwhile, Manning's highlight packages glossed over glaring flaws. His pedigree created a safety net no mistake could cut through. Sanders looked at that system and saw more than favoritism. He saw the myth of meritocracy unraveling in real time. To make matters more intense, Sanders wasn't alone in his frustration. Reports suggest that multiple league veterans quietly backed his perspective. Some had lived it watching less talented names leapfrog them on depth charts, while they fought uphill battles just to get noticed. Others simply respected Sanders' talent and couldn't stomach the imbalance. Publicly, they stayed quiet. Speaking out meant risking careers. But privately, the sentiment was clear. He was right. And that's what makes Sanders' situation so different. He isn't just fighting to prove himself as a quarterback, he's fighting against an entire system of narratives designed to protect some and bury others. For Sanders, it's not only about winning games, it's about exposing the truth. Because if Manning's collapse could be spun into progress while Sanders' excellence was questioned, then this wasn't just about football. It was about fairness, about integrity, about whether the NFL really is the meritocracy it claims to be. And that realization turned a quarterback rivalry into something much bigger, a battle that would shake the foundation of professional evaluation itself. For decades, the NFL has sold itself as the ultimate meritocracy, the one profession where talent and performance supposedly outweigh everything else. Coaches preach it, analysts repeat it, fans believe it. If you can play, you'll rise. If you can't, you'll fall. Simple, right? But the Manning-Sanders saga has ripped a hole straight through that myth, exposing just how fragile the idea really is. Because what we've seen isn't equal evaluation, it's selective judgment. When Arch Manning collapses, the narrative is patience. When Shedeur Sanders excels, the narrative is, we need to see more. One quarterback gets the benefit of the doubt, while the other faces impossible standards. That's not meritocracy, that's privilege disguised as process. And this isn't just an outsider's opinion. Inside the league, whispers are growing louder. Scouts, executives, and even players have admitted privately that what's happening doesn't feel right. Veterans who've spent years grinding through depth charts recognize the double standard instantly. As one anonymous player put it, everyone sees it, we just can't say it. That silence says everything. The truth is, football has always had cracks in its so-called meritocracy. Legacy names, draft status, and media narratives have long tilted the scales. But rarely has it been this obvious, this public, and this damaging. Manning, with his last name, doesn't just get second chances, he gets an entirely different set of rules. Sanders, despite proving himself again and again, has to keep reproving what should already be settled. The stakes go far beyond these two quarterbacks. If performance isn't the ultimate measure, what does that mean for every young player fighting to break through? What does it mean for overlooked prospects, undrafted rookies, or anyone without a famous last name? If narratives can outweigh numbers, then football's foundation objective evaluation is already cracked. And that's why Sanders' frustration resonates so strongly. He isn't just venting about favoritism. He's pointing at the very system the NFL has built its reputation on and asking the uncomfortable question, is this really about talent, or is it about protecting the brand? That's a dangerous question, one that cuts to the heart of how careers are made and broken. Because if meritocracy is a myth, then every evaluation, every draft, and every scouting report suddenly comes under suspicion. How many players were written off not because of ability, but because they lacked the right connections? How many stars were buried because the machine didn't back them? And how many legacies were manufactured out of thin air? The Manning-Sanders debate isn't just a rivalry, it's a mirror, forcing fans and insiders alike to look at football's hidden flaws. And the longer this story lingers, the harder it becomes to pretend those flaws don't exist. But here's where things get even more volatile. The scouts themselves, the people tasked with finding truth in the tape, are beginning to question whether they can even do their jobs honestly anymore. And once that confidence cracks, the entire system is at risk. Scouts are supposed to be the truth tellers of football. Their job is simple on paper. Watch the tape, study the mechanics, analyze the decision-making, and report what the film really shows. But when narratives like Manning's and Sanders collide, even the scouts find themselves in chaos. Because what happens when what you see doesn't match what the world is being told? That's exactly the dilemma playing out right now. A scout can sit in a dark film room, rewinding Arch Manning's throws, charting incompletions, and logging 0 touchdowns. The report might scream, "Not ready." But by the time the media machine spins it, that same performance looks like a victory in disguise. Suddenly, scouts aren't just evaluating players, they're competing with carefully crafted storylines that carry more weight than their own professional analysis. And it's not just frustrating, it's dangerous. In draft rooms, decision-makers want consensus. If ESPN praises Manning as a future franchise quarterback, it pressures scouts to soften their critiques. Nobody wants to be the one guy in the room going against the hype. Scouts know their reputations are on the line too. Criticize a Manning too harshly, and if he somehow succeeds, you look like the fool who missed. Praise Sanders honestly, and you risk being dismissed as biased or falling for flashy stats. The result? Reports get watered down. Scouts hedge their evaluations. Instead of calling things as they are, they bury hard truths under vague language, inconsistent mechanics, needs time, potential upside. The words may sound neutral, but in reality, they're shields to protect themselves in a league where narratives often outweigh facts. Meanwhile, Sanders becomes the measuring stick nobody wants to touch. His tape shows accuracy, poise, and toughness, but scouts hesitate to give him the full credit. Why? Because acknowledging his greatness means confronting the imbalance. It means admitting that someone outside the Golden Name Club is outperforming a Manning. That's not just an evaluation, that's a controversy. And controversy is something most scouts try to avoid. The chaos doesn't stop there. Players and coaches notice it too. Locker rooms whisper about the media darlings who rise faster than they should, while grinders get overlooked. Coaches quietly admit that sometimes keeping a hyped player on the roster isn't just about talent, it's about ticket sales and headlines. That trickles down to scouting, where decisions start to feel less about football and more about business. And here's the frightening part. Once scouting becomes influenced by narratives, the entire NFL talent pipeline is compromised. Prospects don't just need skills, they need stories. Scouts don't just need accuracy, they need alignment with media perception. The truth gets blurred and chaos replaces clarity. For Sanders, this chaos has been both a curse and a weapon. He sees how unfair the system is, but he also knows exposing it could shift the balance. Because when scouts themselves begin to question whether they're serving the game or the narrative, the league is sitting on a powder keg. And that powder keg was about to explode thanks to one viral moment that changed everything. At some point, no amount of media spin can hide what's happening between the lines. Film doesn't lie, and the contrast between Arch Manning and Shedeur Sanders has been nothing short of staggering. For every excuse given to Manning, Sanders was stacking undeniable proof that he belonged not just as a starter, but as a rising star. Take Manning first. His college tape shows flashes of raw ability, a clean release, decent mobility, and the occasional deep ball that looks NFL ready. But flashes don't win games. Too often, his reads are late, his timing off, and his confidence shaky once pressure breaks through the line. Drives stall, red zone trips end without touchdowns. The fundamentals just aren't there yet. And yet, after each underwhelming outing, the highlight packages somehow find that one decent throw and replay it as though it defines his night. Now put that next to Sanders. Precision footwork, crisp timing, a calm pocket presence that looks more like a veteran than a rookie. When defenses bring the blitz, he doesn't panic. He adjusts protections, reads the coverage, and delivers strikes downfield. Instead of a single highlight-worthy throw, Sanders fills entire reels with NFL-caliber decision-making. Drive after drive, he shows command, control, and composure. Numbers don't just back him up, they prove the gap. Multiple 400-yard games, a touchdown-to-interception ratio that scouts drool over. These aren't flashes, they're full-blown performances. And the difference goes deeper than stats. It's about how teammates respond. On the sideline, Sanders commands respect. Players listen when he speaks. Coaches trust him to run the offense without training wheels. In Manning's case, the vibe feels different, more cautious, almost protective. It's as though everyone knows he's not ready, but they're afraid to say it out loud. The locker room energy tells the story just as clearly as the box score. What makes the contrast so jarring is how it gets presented. Sanders executes at a high level and the media says, let's see him do it against tougher competition. Manning struggles and the media says, he's just getting started. The ceiling is sky high. Two different realities. One grounded in results, the other in reputation. But here's the thing. The players themselves see it. Opponents know which quarterback gives them problems and which one doesn't. Defenders talk after games, and their respect for Sanders is real. They feel his presence on the field. With Manning, it's more of a relief, like facing a guy who's still learning, still vulnerable. That difference can't be faked, no matter how many times the cameras try to reframe it. The tape doesn't care about last names. The film doesn't care about hype. When you line Manning's struggles against Sanders' mastery, the contrast is blinding. And once that contrast began hitting social media, clips side by side, fans started asking the question the NFL wanted to avoid. Why is one man being doubted while the other is being protected? The answer to that question would soon explode in a way no one could control. When you strip away the stat sheets, the excuses, and the viral clips, what remains is a story far larger than Arch Manning or Shedeur Sanders. This is about the state of football itself, the integrity of its evaluation system, the culture surrounding opportunity, and the myth that performance always equals advancement. The Manning-Sanders saga isn't just quarterback controversy. It's a mirror reflecting the cracks in a billion-dollar institution. The NFL and college football both sell the same slogan, it's a meritocracy. Work harder, play better, and your talent will earn you a shot. That belief is what fuels young athletes from Pop Warner to the pros. But Manning's protection and Sanders' scrutiny revealed something darker sometimes. The system bends for certain names, certain families, certain narratives. Privilege doesn't just exist, it reshapes the entire playing field. This is why the fallout has been so explosive. Fans aren't stupid. They see a quarterback throwing for 170 empty yards being hailed as the next big thing, while another breaks records and gets nitpicked to death. The disconnect damages credibility not only for the media, but for the organizations making the decisions. If evaluations are skewed before a rookie even takes an NFL snap, how much trust can fans place in the idea that the best players are on the field every Sunday? Scouts and executives privately admit this double standard is a nightmare. Draft boards are supposed to reflect objective analysis, not legacy politics. When a Manning gets pushed up despite glaring flaws, it forces every team to question its own processes. Bias creeps in subtly. Maybe a scout hesitates to criticize the Golden Boy too harshly. Maybe an executive leans on name recognition because it sells tickets. Slowly, accountability erodes. That's how dynasties crumble and how franchises waste years chasing a mirage. The bigger picture also bleeds into culture. In locker rooms, players talk. Veterans know who's been handed opportunities and who's had to claw for every snap. If the league continues to prop up legacy at the expense of production, resentment festers. Younger players start questioning whether the grind is even worth it. And once belief in the meritocracy is gone, the entire foundation of competitive sports begins to rot. Sanders' emergence forces that uncomfortable conversation. He represents the old-school path, years of proving himself on the field, refining his craft, and demanding respect through performance. Manning represents something else entirely, the idea that being born into the right family might be just as important as reading a blitz. Put side by side, they highlight a philosophical divide that extends beyond football: performance versus privilege, credibility versus branding. And so, the Manning-Sanders controversy isn't just about who starts on Sundays, it's about whether the sport itself still believes in its core values. Fans, players, and even executives are now forced to ask the same haunting question: is football truly the ultimate meritocracy, or has it become just another stage where narrative trumps reality? The answer may decide the future of the game. When the dust settles, this saga won't just be remembered as a rivalry between two quarterbacks. It will be remembered as the moment football's very foundation was called into question. Arch Manning's protection and Shedeur Sanders' relentless scrutiny exposed something deeper than highlight reels or box scores. They revealed the fragile nature of the system. Fans have long trusted, a system that claims to reward merit, but too often bows to legacy, narrative, and institutional bias. At its core, the sport's promise has always been simple: if you can play, you'll get your shot. That's what makes football unique, what makes it beloved. The walk-on who earns a scholarship, the late-round pick who becomes a superstar, the undrafted rookie who carves out a career — these stories give fans hope that effort and performance still matter. But when Manning's struggles are excused while Sanders' excellence is questioned, that hope begins to fracture. The myth of the meritocracy no longer feels unbreakable. For Sanders, this fight has never been just about proving himself as a quarterback. It's about standing against a system that too often decides winners before the games are even played. Every throw he makes, every drive he commands, is more than football. It's a statement. He's not just competing against defenses on the field, he's competing against an establishment determined to protect its chosen narrative. And for Manning, the weight is just as heavy, though in a different way. Every time the media shields him, every time excuses pile up, it fuels resentment among players and fans alike. The very protection meant to preserve his reputation may end up defining it. Instead of being judged solely on his play, he risks forever carrying the label of privilege, the quarterback who got chances others never would. The league now stands at a crossroads. Continue down the path of manufactured narratives, and it risks losing something far more valuable than ratings or ticket sales: credibility. Fans demand fairness, players demand opportunity, and executives demand results. Without integrity and evaluation, all of that collapses. The Manning-Sanders controversy has simply made visible what insiders have whispered for years: the system is broken, and pretending otherwise won't fix it. But here's the twist. Out of chaos often comes change. Sanders' determination, the growing unease among scouts, the chatter in locker rooms — it all points toward a reckoning. Football can still correct course, can still reclaim the values that made it great. But it will take courage. It will take organizations willing to hold every player, famous name or not, to the same standard. Because in the end, this story isn't about one quarterback being better than another. It's about whether football itself can live up to the ideals it preaches. Integrity is on the line. And if the sport fails to protect that, then no amount of manufactured narratives will be enough to save it. If you enjoyed today's breakdown and want to keep up with all the drama, trades, and behind-the-scenes action in the NFL, then don't forget to hit that like button. It really helps this channel grow and lets us know you love this kind of content. And hey, don't keep it to yourself. Share this video with your friends, your group chats, or anyone who loves football as much as you do. The more the conversation spreads, the better it gets. Most importantly, if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to the channel and tap the notification bell. That way, you'll never miss when we drop fresh stories, wild rumors, or breaking updates that the mainstream media won't talk about.